something. I have it on tape.
Ah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I'm pretty clumsy. People, not just doctors, but this comes into play heavily with doctors, don't really know what empathy looks like. And a lot of the time in like a medical setting, empathy could really come off as sympathy, if anything, which makes you actually feel very alone. Or there could just be an absence of empathy altogether because they think the way they can best do their job is to separate themselves emotionally from the patient. So neither way is good. So 20 years of joint pain before I was actually diagnosed with my condition. And in the 2 years I've been diagnosed, I progressed a lot. So I'm very thankful that I have the diagnosis now because I'd really be freaking out with like, what is happening to my body?
So how
And
did you actually get diagnosed then? Like what was like the, I guess, breaking moment for you?
most of those 5 hours, I went through a bunch of different emotions, but it didn't hit me super hard. It was actually when I picked up my husband that night at my parents' house in New York. And so the three of them were standing there and seeing them triggered something for me. Because I
Oh.
realized that, yeah, I wasn't, I don't know, I wasn't expecting that. All I know is I started crying,
Mm-hmm.
where I was able to confront my father and be like, I know you love me, but you kind of been gaslighting me for 20 years, telling
Yeah.
me nothing's wrong with me. And now something's clearly wrong with me.
That's kind of how it goes in a way. So like now, are you okay with the diagnosis now? Like do you accept it or is it more like fuck every like 3 days?
I don't know what the cadence of the oh fucks are, but,
So did you
and
like talk to your doctor of getting pregnant, or you were just like, we're gonna do this, and then we're just gonna, I guess, suffer whatever happens?
no, I did a lot of prep work for this. And to throw something else on top of it, and I'll just make this a very quick statement. My baby's not doing so well, so I
Oh
have been
no.
put on bed rest as of this past week.
It would just be a selfish reason for me to want to have kids too, because like they're gonna be suffering. Like life sucks, and like I think it's too risky for. I think like in the disabled world, I think a lot of disabled people aren't happy.
Does it make them special overall in their contribution to life? No, I would still, I agree with you, like to say
Yeah.
that should be an even playing field. It's weird. It's like no one's grading the world on who's special or
Oh.
not, but like is if I give each of them a ladder that is high enough so that they can look over the top. So like the
Hmm.
small one gets a much taller ladder and the medium one gets a
Yeah.
slightly taller ladder. And see where I'm going with this? There's
Yep.
a difference between equitable and equal.
Hello, welcome to my podcast, Too Much Fun Joe Stooch. I am Joe Stooch, and I'll be giving a mic to Eva. Eva is a rare disease advocate and a doctor-patient relationship expert. She was on a TED Talk to explain the importance of doctor-patient relationship that is extremely lacking. She is diagnosed with two diseases, that is Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and fibromyalgia. Took her 20 years to get diagnosed properly. Let's talk about the negatives of going to the doctor's office.
Try to sit on this ball and see if this is high enough. My
Okay.
hips are hurting. Let me see. I need to blow this up more. I used to do all
Yeah.
my podcasts on a ball,
Really? Okay.
and it would be funny because I'm like rolling around here.
I mean, it's on video right now, so I hope you like fall off or something. I have it on tape.
Ah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I'm pretty clumsy.
I would definitely
Um,
include it in my trailer for you.
I mean, I could probably talk about it for 5 hours, so I don't know if you want to open that
Yeah,
can
let's
of
let's
worms at
do
this
like the
exact
top two
moment.
or three things that a doctor wouldn't know that they're doing wrong, but it's wrong from a patient point of view.
Yeah, well, I think, and this is actually something I'm learning more about recently, is people, not just doctors, but this comes into play heavily with doctors, don't really know what empathy looks like. And a lot of the time in like a medical setting, empathy could really come off as sympathy, if anything, which makes you actually feel very alone. Or there could just be an absence of empathy altogether because they think the way they can best do their job is to separate themselves emotionally from the patient. So neither way is good. And I think a misconception about empathy in general, again, but definitely in the medical setting, is that in order to empathize, you have to feel what the other person is feeling, and like know what it's like to be in their shoes. But the truth is, no one really knows what it's like to be in someone else's shoes, even if you've actually been in like the same exact situation. But what you can empathize with, which you can get on board with, is the emotion that they're feeling. So if I'm feeling sad, like maybe the reason why I'm feeling sad, the doctor is like, I can't relate to that. I don't know what it's like to not be diagnosed for 10 years, but they know what it's like to feel sad. So that they can connect with me on, not the maybe being misdiagnosed for 10 years part. So I think empathy, or a lack thereof, is the biggest issue in healthcare communication. But I wanted to break down that element of the lack of empathy. Like, it's, people don't really understand what it looks like, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I want to say most people don't really have a problem going in, so they don't need 15 minutes to describe anything. It's more like, I feel fine, maybe my knee hurts something. Take an aspirin. You just walk away. But for us, it's more of a, like in your situation, like my joints are hurting, sometimes I can't walk. It's a much more deeper analysis of it. It's not someone that can just diagnose you in 10 minutes or even an hour. It's like what are you feeling? And it's like, what do we go from here? Like, then you gotta get a test done, and then that's stressful, and they change appointment and shit, and then then you gotta talk to them again and see if they go back to you, and they call you, and then you miss the phone call, and you call them 30 seconds later, and it's like you can't talk to them again. It's like, it's just really stressful. Like, some doctors are really like awesome that they'll give their phone number and like call you at like 9 o'clock at night and like actually want to, like, maybe they can't help you directly, but like want to find an answer for you. But I think those doctors are on the rare side.
Yeah, I think 90-something% of doctors, we're kind of their worst nightmare, like a complicated case. We take up time, resources, also may question their knowledge because they can't retain everything. Doctors are still humans. I know times that has happened to other people. I have not had that happen to me, although I would say it was a covered up equivalent. Like,
I mean, not like they were just like nope and they left, but it was kind of like you caught the feeling like they didn't want to be there, and it was like they purposely didn't even try to do anything because they just didn't want you to come back again.
yeah, I think one of the stories that I reference in my bad experiences, and I'd actually like to, like, a side note for a second, I talk to people about their negative experiences with doctors constantly. And I've had them, but I haven't actually had that many. So I'm not like a patient on a vengeance here because I personally have been screwed so many times. Like, yes, it took me forever to find a diagnosis, but I've actually been relatively lucky with doctors. But I'm aware of the spectrum of experiences because I talk to people about it all the time. Anyway, a story that I reference often is this like top doc in New York City, like top orthopedic surgeon, also happened to be really handsome. Just which was like distracting. He cut me off like, I don't know, a few seconds into me telling my story. I was waiting forever to see him, and I had been in pain for so long. It's been this big mystery, and he immediately was just like, "Yeah, I think you have runner's knee." When I had been complaining about all of my joints, not just my knee, and I wasn't a runner. I'm aware that runner's knee is more about like use of your joints, but even so, it was like, sure, he diagnosed me or tried to, but to me, that was the equivalent of him saying, I don't know what's going on. I'm just going to throw you a Band-Aid here of what I think might help. Like, here's a brace, have fun. So that was the closest to a nope I think I've ever gotten. And to add insult to injury, 3 years later, I think I saw that exact same doctor, not realizing I was referred to the same doctor again because I guess I didn't remember his name. I blocked him in my mind. And my wonderful GP, who I trust and is a wonderful doctor, sent me to this guy because I guess he went to like a top medical school or something because that was his perception of what a good doctor was. But it was like deja vu. The exact same thing happened. And I really want to go to that doctor now and be like, I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and I'm falling apart and now I need a wheelchair. And if you had diagnosed me with this years earlier, I would have done PT and taken things more seriously, where maybe I could have slowed down this progression. Who knows what else that would have done for my life. So, by the way, it took me 10 years to be diagnosed with fibromyalgia. It took me another 10 years to be diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome.
Sheesh.
In fact, when I did my TED Talk about doctor-patient relationships, I referenced my diagnosis to fibromyalgia. I hadn't even been diagnosed with EDS when I gave that talk.
Oh, so my research was kind of not good on you then. Oh, no.
I realized I don't know if there's anything public on that for me. I was diagnosed, the TED Talk happened like a couple weeks before the pandemic began. And my diagnosis for EDS happened August 2020.
Oh, I think it was like when we were just talking and stuff, I like was just writing notes down just to like I can reference later. I think that was happening. I just like when you would say, yeah, like if you say you were diagnosed 10 years, I just kind of assumed that it's the diseases that you have, but I am dropping the ball so much with you today. I'm sorry.
I need to put all my information on a one-pager. But yeah, so 20 years of joint pain before I was actually diagnosed with my condition. And in the 2 years I've been diagnosed, I progressed a lot. So I'm very thankful that I have the diagnosis now, because I'd really be freaking out with like, what is happening to my body? I don't have a name for it yet. And now I do. And I have specialists to help me.
So how did you actually get diagnosed then? Like what was like the, I guess, breaking moment for you?
So I was sort of diagnosed with hypermobility syndrome, which is a diagnosis, pretty self-explanatory. A lot of people were saying who have EDS, that I just happen to know because I've now been in like the chronic disease and rare disease community for a while. They're like, "Think you have EDS," including my colleague Monica Michelle of Invisible Not Broken, and she has EDS really badly. She's like, "Yeah, 13 years ago, I was like you." And so I did some research on the top diagnosticians for this condition and made sure that they don't just diagnose it willy-nilly either. Like they'll tell you if you don't have it. And so I was living in New York at the time, and I found this doctor who was in Maryland. And I have friends in Maryland. I was like, I'll make a trip out of it. But this doctor is out of pocket, and I think it was like $800 out of pocket.
Oh my God.
And so I was like, I put it off for a minute. And eventually I said to my husband, like, I really need to know if I have EDS or not. And because it will change how I approach my self-care and treatment and all that going forward. Hypermobility syndrome, like you have hypermobile joints and that's kind of it. EDS is a progressive illness. And there are things that you can do that are much more specific. And he said to me, would it be worth the $800 in the trip if you don't have EDS? And I said, yes, it would be. Even to know that I don't have it, it would be worth it. And so he's like, go do it then. That's what we need to do. And so after a 2-hour physical exam, because EDS can be diagnosed via blood work, I might be wrong about this, but except for, I think, vascular EDS, which might be able to be diagnosed via blood work. But anyway, it was a 2-hour physical exam. I recorded it. It was very, very detailed. And at the end of it, she said, yes, you do have EDS. You also have, or likely have, mast cell activation syndrome and POTS. What is it? Postural ortho... I have it, and I always forget what it stands for.
I know what it is.
Postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. I think neither of which I had shown like intense symptoms for, but she said most people with EDS have these two comorbidities anyway, so just a heads up. And she was right. I do have them. Found that out the hard way. I won't lie. When I found out, I was kind of happy for a moment.
Yeah.
That like, oh, I've been wondering for 20 years what's wrong with me, and now I know. So despite it not being a great diagnosis or prognosis, it's like, answers, yay.
I mean, like, at one point where you just like, fuck, and it's like, shit, like now I have to deal with this.
Well, I had a 5 hour drive back. So that was time for me, and I was alone. So I had time to process. Part of that was actually even before calling my husband, I called Monica, my friend who has really bad
Yeah.
EDS, and she was really great at comforting me. But I think it most of those 5 hours, I went through a bunch of different emotions, but it didn't hit me super hard. It was actually when I picked up my husband that night at my parents' house in New York. And so the three of them were standing there, and seeing them triggered something for me. Because I
Oh,
realized that, yeah, I wasn't, I don't know, I wasn't expecting that. All I know is I started crying. Like they didn't ask me about the appointment. Maybe I don't know if they forgot about the appointment or what, but they didn't ask me about it, and I just started crying. And at some point, I was able to mutter through like I have EDS, and I don't know what this means, and I started freaking out a little bit. And they were all really comforting. I think this is actually a good time though to bring up an interesting issue in the world of those with invisible chronic illnesses. And
mm-hmm.
EDS is invisible until I guess you start popping out shoulders in front of people. My father, who for the record I love dearly and is a wonderful human, never really believed me when it came to my chronic pain and whatnot because it was
Mm-hmm.
invisible. He's very much a I need proofs and data kind of dude.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm a girl. I was a bit of drama queen in high school. Whatever it was, he did not. He did not believe it. And so when I'm crying and telling him that this very like renowned doctor, my husband had kind of searched them out too. My husband's a doctor, so whatever. He like approved of them, and
Oh, okay. That's easy.
just a little context. Like I also recorded it so that my husband could listen to the whole appointment. I wanted to see what he thought about the evaluation,
Okay. I
and
mean,
he
that's
was
just
like,
smart in general, anyway.
yeah, getting
Cause
someone else to hear it.
you're just blanking at that moment. I'm sure everyone does when
Yeah,
they're just
yeah, exactly.
talking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that was helpful. But anyway, so my father's trying to comfort me, and I said something while he was hugging me, like, I know you never really understood what I was going through, and it's been hard for you to admit that I have a problem. And he's like, no, I've always believed you. And then my mom and my husband behind him were like, no, you didn't.
Okay.
And they called him out on it. And that was another sad but satisfying moment
Mm-hmm.
where I was able to confront my father and be like, I know you love me, but you kind of been gaslighting me for 20 years, telling
Yeah.
me nothing's wrong with me. And now something's clearly wrong with me.
That's kind of how it goes in a way. So like now, are you okay with the diagnosis now? Like, do you accept it, or is it more like fuck every like 3 days?
I don't know what the cadence of the oh fucks are, but it's definitely it's definitely up and down. I
Yeah.
think it's both a blessing and a curse that those are extreme words. Both there are pros and cons to me being part of this community, like where
Yeah.
we talk about this kind of stuff all the time. The pro being I feel super supported and I have resources and people who are going through similar things to me. But a negative is, or a con is that I become a little bit numb to it because you talk about it. You
Yeah.
don't necessarily internalize it. And I don't think it was until like a year ago that I really started to internalize what the diagnosis meant. So I've been diagnosed for 2 years. Took about a year of me not really thinking about it, just going on with my life, upping
Mm-hmm.
my physical therapy a bit.
I mean, your life really didn't change though. It was just you just had an answer for it, but like you still, I guess, went to work the next day and everything else. Like nothing changed physically.
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
a
that's a
mental
good
state.
point. Yes and no. It didn't change drastically, but I have progressed quite a bit in the last couple of years,
Okay.
which is why I wanted an answer. Because I guess right before the diagnosis, that was starting. I could tell I was like, things are hurting more and getting damaged more. I don't know Like, we should figure this out.
Mm-hmm.
And so things changed in that yes, I had a name for it, but I did start looking out for different types of physical therapy treatment, because that's like the main thing you do with EDS is it's all preventative. You can't really backtrack or make things better. You can just like slow it down, slow down your body just
But I think
falling apart.
I don't have EDS, but talking to other EDS, I know in the beginning, like 20 years ago, they made EDS people like not move at all because they just thought the more movement you make, the worse you'll become. But then studies have shown that actually working out and like being active actually helps you more and be less pain and I guess less prone to dislocations, something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's a good point. I've okay, what the main piece of advice that the EDS specialist gave me was, you have to work out for the rest of your life. You can't be like someone else who takes like a 2 week or a few month or year break and then get back in shape.
I mean, every doctor tells you that, though.
Yeah, right. But she was like, but I mean it for you. Like, you can't actually take breaks. There's no breaks for you. You have to be working out for the rest of your life. Now, working out means a lot of different things depending on who you are and where you are in your stage of EDS, but it's also this constant balancing act, because you have to use and strengthen your muscles around your joints, because ultimately your tendons and ligaments will be just stretching over time. So your muscles gotta.
That's why Eva is on a medicine ball right now.
Exactly. Huzzah. And so we have to do that, but we also have to not overstrain them. So it's a constant balancing act, and that changes. Like, it can change sometimes on a daily basis. You strain yourself in a certain way. You don't want to overwork that, or you don't want to strain it further. You want to let it heal, but you can't do nothing either. And I think I'll jump ahead here because it's very relevant to now. My diagnosis has made a huge difference in my current life. So I am 27.5 weeks pregnant. I don't know if I need to show my bump, but I got a big bump.
I believe you.
So I'm like, 6-ish months pregnant. And I mean, we were really worried about this going into it. This was a planned pregnancy. My husband and I have been talking about it for years. People with EDS are known to have really shitty pregnancies. Also, people with fibromyalgia.
I know, but didn't this your third child now?
No, this is my first. Yeah, you said something about she has 3 kids earlier. I was like, no, I don't. I thought I heard something else.
Hold on, I have that you have.
Where does it say this? I want to know. Where on the internet it
You're
says
a mother
I
of
have 3 kids.
3?
No, I'm a new mom. I'm going to be a new mama.
Oh, man, I'm really dropping the ball today. Shit. I really have that you were a mother.
Are they cute?
Oh, man. Maybe you mentioned someone else had a mother of 3, but I thought you were a mother of 3. Man, I'm really bad.
When we spoke, but yeah, this is my first rodeo into motherhood and pregnancy.
So did you like talk to your doctor of getting pregnant, or you were just like, we're gonna do this, and then was it gonna, I guess, suffer whatever happens?
No, I did a lot of prep work for this. Also, like a lot of genetic testing. I met my deductible in like January this year because I got a full cardiac workup. I was like, hopefully I get pregnant this year, and so that my insurance covers everything this year. Which it did. It worked out. My baby's due December 17th. Huzzah!
Oh, shit. Okay, that's so close, though.
It is close. But the latest they'll be born, I guess, technically, I think they would induce me by like Christmas Day. So yeah.
So I'm guessing like a C-section is like the safest bet for you?
Do you know, that's something that I still don't have an answer to, but I know, because I'm sacrificing my body in general here, that my preference is to not have a C-section unless it is the right thing for the baby. My body's going to be kind of destroyed no matter what, which really sucks. Ripping open muscles in my stomach, like a C-section is a really big deal. I personally do not understand women who opt for a C-section. It's not, I don't understand it.
I mean, I'm just thinking like I get where you're coming from, but I feel like if you're doing the natural. I feel like it's more like the hips are like moving and everything is like more. I mean, I'm
I
not a
mean,
doctor.
I
Yeah.
totally get where you're coming from.
So like,
It's so we have something called like relaxin. I really hope I'm getting that right. Relaxin, a hormone that all pregnant women have released, which is one of the many reasons why pregnancy for EDS is terrible because you all pregnant women get looser joints, lower down
hmm
especially when they're pregnant, and I already have crazy loose joints, so I'm like just a bubbling mess. And for the
so
past
it's just
month,
gonna fly out, I guess now.
yeah, I mean, like, so maybe, but there's like EDS comes with other things in addition to like the loose ligaments. We also don't react to anesthesia properly. A lot of us, like, we need more of it.
Really?
I don't even understand the mechanism behind that, but that is like I have to tell my doctors when they give me an epidural because I will be getting an epidural. That I've like that's happening with my fibro and everything else. I'm getting an epidural. Uh, yeah, like I might need more than other people. So that's something I actually need to consult my doctors on and how that works. But there are a lot of different complications. Oddly enough, I have had a pretty easy pregnancy up until like now. I won't go into detail. I did have 1 week of flares where mast cell and POTS came to say hello. And it was the worst
Oh
week of
no.
my entire life in terms of chronic illness. And I've been sick for a long time. But that aside, the majority of the last 6 months have actually been pretty easy. But EDS did rear its ugly head in the last month or so when I had to stop doing any aerobic exercise or weightlifting because I would strain my ligaments so easily
hmm
that like like a 20-minute walk, and I love walking, like taking walks, that would be really painful. I'm still healing from this where if I have to turn over in bed, my inner thigh muscles slash ligaments are so sore. It's like, ugh. So sleeping
hmm
is really painful.
It is
Anyway, all
the pregnancy, like you becoming bigger, the problem, or is it more like the weight of the baby?
I mean, those are kind of one and the same, like just weight in general. It's like bigger and the weight. But it's that plus your relaxed ligaments, plus
hmm
me being someone with EDS, I'm already really loose. It's like all those compounded on each other. So now we are talking about balance with EDS, like balancing working out and also not going overboard.
Yeah.
Now, okay, so now I have EDS, I'm pregnant, and to throw something else on top of it, and I'll just make this a very quick statement. My baby's not doing so well, so I
Oh
have been
no.
put on bed rest as of this past week. I thought I was going to go on bed rest because of EDS, like because I'm falling apart, but actually my baby apparently needs me to rest too.
Mm.
And so now I've got EDS, pregnancy, and bed rest, and I have to somehow balance all of that. Balance as in like I have to stay active and yet I have to not
Yeah.
really move. So
Well,
it's
yeah,
difficult.
yeah, that is difficult. Like, I know you mentioned like you were doing DNA testing. So are you afraid of your baby having what you're having? Are you trying to prevent that, or are you just like how is your like? I'm coming from a mindset like I don't want to spread my DNA to my children for obvious reasons. Like, are you afraid to pass your DNA to your children, or like what is your you and your husband approach to that?
Yeah, that's a valid question. EDS is a genetic disorder. The reason we haven't taken that into consideration for conceiving our own children is that EDS, we're actually starting to find, might not be a rare condition. Like, so for instance, I'm the first person in my family with EDS that anyone's taking note of. I'm pretty sure my mom has it. I'm pretty sure my sister has it, and other people in my family do, but it doesn't manifest that significantly.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the what I'm trying to say is we're taking the risk because it doesn't seem like it affects most people that badly. It seems pretty rare. And now if we do have someone with it, we know we can look out for it earlier. They can get
Mm-hmm.
diagnosed earlier, take care of it earlier. There are other things we looked for genetically, though, where if we were incompatible, we would not have conceived naturally. We're both Jewish, so there's a lot of
Okay.
a lot of genetic issues that come with having two Jews together. We don't have any of those issues. And yeah, in general, look, everyone has a lot of different opinions on this, right? But I want to give our baby the best chance possible
Mm-hmm.
at a life. And it doesn't mean like any of us with rare conditions or disabilities like are not worthy of a wonderful life.
Yeah.
It's just I'd want to give them the best chance possible. No matter what, they're going to have problems. Everybody's got their problems. They look different. Honestly, I'm still much prefer my life to someone who is perfectly able-bodied and super healthy and all these things because I'm happier actually than most people that I know. I am a naturally positive person, and I think that is where and I'm a very privileged person in a lot of ways. So I won't get into that. I'm
Mm-hmm.
aware of my privilege, but I think the number one way in which I am privileged is that I am naturally positive. So I hope my baby has that. That's what I really, really hope we pass down.
But I mean, he has also your husband DNA, so I don't know how he is. So
He's like that too. I should have said that. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I don't know what anyone thinks about this, but this is again all my opinions. I respect other people's opinions.
Yeah.
I'm very pro adoption and all the other ways of raising or not raising humans. But other than EDS, perhaps, I think that my husband and I are pretty solid people who want to do good for the world, who are nice and intelligent. And I was like, I think if anyone, like there were people who are going to procreate, I'd like it to be people like us who, like, I really feel like can leave a positive mark. Just because
Mm,
I feel that about us doesn't mean
yeah.
our kids will. They could be
Exactly.
fucking terrible.
I mean,
But I'm hoping, to both of us genetically equal a somewhat similar human, maybe.
I mean, like I want to have like a LeBron James kid. I don't want like a loser. Like then what? Like what? Like I'm stuck with this person forever. And it's like do something.
I'll love them even if they're a loser, and I'll love them if they're an asshole. But I'm hoping that with the combo of nature and nurture, we can bring up
Hmm.
some good humans for this planet because we don't need that many more people on this planet. But I'd like to put some
No.
good people on the planet,
Hell
and that's what
yeah.
I believe we can do. I think that's something that we have the capabilities to do with a combo of our DNA and our values.
I mean, I
Let's say.
think we're both in similar position in terms of podcasting that we know so many diseases out there that I feel like if like let's say your baby was diagnosed with something like I guess you could say my disease, like you would be like, nope, we're not gonna have this child just because of how bad it is. But like it's also complicated for you like you say you're Jewish and you know like like you have like your morals, but then you also have like your religion and your family. So like do we like it's like a weird conflicting thing with the disabled where like do you accept them, do you not, like how do you go about it? I'm more like we should set up our children to be in better shape, so like I would not have kids because I don't want my shit DNA to be spread because I think it's unfair for the kids to have a disadvantage in their life forever. And like that's it, like I know I'm awesome like personality wise, but like not worth the disease at all. It's like I would never want them to. It would be a selfish reason for me to want to have kids too, because like they're gonna be suffering. Like life sucks, and like I think it's too risky for. I think like in the disabled world, I think a lot of disabled people are unhappy, and like like so like one thing is like I'm single, so like people will be like, oh, here are all these disabled relationships that are all going out, and I'm like that's great, but like there's so many more disabled people that don't have social media that may never see the light of day and not doing well at all. You just don't see them. You only see like 1% of it. And I think most, I don't like the whole disabled population. Like, we're all important and like, we're not important. Like, that's what people tell us, but we're really not. We're just average people, like, trying to do average thing. Like, think like a regular person with no ailment. They're just like living life, not doing anything. That's fine. Why can we apply that the same to disabled people? But now that they
Yeah.
have extra barriers, they're doing even worse. So like, I don't. The chances of them not doing as great is kind of low, and it's like I think we're being told lies about us all the time, and I feel like I'm a huge asshole in the disabled community of like I'm like trying to live in the reality of life, and everyone trying to like live in this sub reality that's just they're just lying to themselves. And I feel like it's toxic to everyone in it, and I'm just like that's why I never like submerge myself in the disabled world because I think it is toxic for me.
I think that's a really good point. I feel like I've seen float around this idea that, like, don't tell me I'm really brave or strong because I have a chronic illness. It's like, this is my life. I'm
But
not
you know what
particularly
annoys me
brave or
about that?
strong because of
You know what
that.
annoys me about that statement though? You say like people, so disabled people will be like, I don't like when people call you inspirational and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you post, hey, took a shower today, everyone that's disabled will be like, oh my God, that's so great and everything. So you're like being a hypocrite because you're promoting that behavior that you don't want to be celebrated for in the first place. You get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, yeah.
Like you're not
Uh,
like you want to be treated normally, but like then you're not treated normally, and it's too conflicting. It's like I think we don't want to be called inspirational, but I feel like deep down we do want to call it just to feel important. But at the end of the day, we're not that important.
well, maybe it's more about being inspirational in a way that could be about disability or doesn't have to be about disability. Like you said, you're an awesome person, and it isn't because you're disabled. You're just an awesome person, right? Like, and I don't know why that's where I think we should be created equally, in that we're just people. All of us are people, and we have things to give to the world, or we don't have things to give to the world. Like, some of us are special, you could say. I don't like the word special, honestly, but like, whatever,
No,
we're
it's to
outstanding in
make us
some
feel
way.
better, but I don't think we're none of us are special at all.
But
Like God,
but like but like you can be special just like someone who's able-bodied can be special, but it has nothing to do with being like disabled or not. Like, if I feel that I'm, yeah, I have a special sauce in some way, like, to give to the
yeah.
world, that it might be related to me being disabled, like something I do happens to be for the disability community, let's say. But that doesn't mean that it's because I'm disabled. I can be a normal person and also be special in a certain way. Am I making sense here?
I get where you're coming from. I just feel like we're just feeding ourselves too many lies, and I think it's just making us worse overall. And then when the truth hits you, it's just like too hard to hear. Like I like to live in the reality of life. Like I don't think like if we're all special, that means none of us are special. There's only special people that are special.
Eighth
So
place
like
trophy syndrome.
exactly, it's like not working at all. Like it's I feel like the disabled community is like being hypocrites to themselves, and I'm just like an outsider, and it's like so bad, and it's like not working. I don't like we already have deep mental problems. I think it's difficult to grasp with rare disease. Like if we're getting the fact that we're getting worse, like that's fine, and we're most of us gonna have mental problem that just comes with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like comes with it, but like I don't know. I think it's just being told lies all the time. Like I can go on rants on so many things with the disabled community. I'm slowly trying to like unveil my YouTube, but it's just like I'm feel like I might be more hated than loved at one point because I just have like a different point of view. But I like to stay in reality of things. I think it's just I'll say I'll feel special if I have like a million subscribers on YouTube because that's like out there. But like disabled people are not special because just because they're alive and have a disability, that doesn't make them special at all. You gotta do something to make yourself special, like stand out. We're all
Yeah.
most of us are just average people at the end of the day.
Yeah. And that's what I was saying with taking disabled out of it. Like,
Yeah,
people aren't just special because they're there. People are. again, I'm really hating the word special, but people are special because of something outstanding, something particular that they
Yeah.
did or are or whatever, whether they're disabled or not. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. I
Yeah.
also think at the same time, in like kind of a different realm, that everyone being or a person being inspirational, or rather like something to someone to look up to, could is also relative.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I want to use the shower example exactly. It's like you're not inspirational perhaps. However, in the relative world of maybe that person's condition, and taking a shower is like a huge achievement. It's not
Yeah.
that that should be unrecognized at all. Like it's like they still did something that is maybe difficult, but does it make them special overall in their contribution to life? No, I would still, I agree with you, like to say
Yeah.
that should be an even playing field. It's weird. It's like no one's grading the world on who's special or
Uh,
not, but like in this
I know,
in
but
this
like I always go in with this commentary like disabled people are like we want to be treated equally, right? That makes sense. So if you took a shower, we shouldn't be celebrating you because being treated equal is that most people that take shower are just completely fine. So being equal is that you get no reaction, but you do get a reaction for it, so that makes you unequal because you're getting praised for it. So it's not you're not equal anymore. You have something more the regular person doesn't have.
maybe it depends on who we're like what we're talking about. Like are we talking about special in the grand scheme of things, or are we talking about like, hey, in this community of people who have this disability, like you did something that's really difficult. That's really awesome, but in the grand scheme of the world and humankind, that isn't really impactful.
I think it's just the disabled community are pushing that we want to be treated normally and equal, but in reality, you're not. We're not being treated normal equal. Sometimes we're being treated. There are situations where we are treated worse, but then there are situations where we're treated better than the average person, and I don't think we recognize that at all.
Yeah. So sorry. So I guess what I'm thinking is there's a difference between within our communities, like our disabled chronic illness communities, versus the able-bodied world, the whole everybody else. Like being created equally in the rest of the world, like with able-bodied people, then
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that definitely doesn't make any sense, because then we're not being treated equally. We're not being seen
Yeah.
equally because our standards are different. And like what's amazing. But if we're talking about just our communities, like like all of us, let's say, if we're talking maybe about a specific disability, like all of us have a hard time showering,
Mm-hmm.
then that person showering is I guess, a big deal. So there's that. I just like to preface this by saying I'm terrible at expressions and like little stories, but I there is this little story about the difference between equality and equity, where you have like a fence, and there are three boys, and they all want to look over this fence,
Mm-hmm.
and their dad's like, "Okay, I'll make sure you all have an equal chance at seeing over the fence." And
Mm-hmm.
so he gives them all the same ladder, except the three boys are three different heights. There's a small one, a medium sized one,
Yeah.
and a tall one. They all get the same ladder, and only the tall one can look over the top. And then he thinks about it and goes, the only way it's actually equal, or rather equitable, is if I give each of them a ladder that is high enough so that they can look over the top. So like the
Mm-hmm.
small one gets a much taller ladder, and the medium one gets a
Yeah.
slightly taller ladder. And see where I'm going with this? There's
Yep.
a difference between equitable and equal. And I think that there's, you could say, almost equitable achievements within our communities where it's like, this is what pushing myself in my community looks like. And then there's like being treated as equals and being given equal opportunities in the real world. And that's where I could go on a whole tangent about like access in the world, like where we're talking about like literal wheelchair access, or we're talking about access to work, like having remote work. Like there's so many different ways we can tap into access, but everyone should have equal opportunity to be able to do something. But the way in which they get something done, that ladder size can be different.
Okay. You made total sense. Yeah. No, I mean you do. I think you put a good argument. I think it very. I guess it have a lot of time to think about it. And I think it's very conflicting to me. It's like, what do you want? Like, do you want just treat it special or equal? Because it's I don't think we're treated equally in some way, and I think it's just, but I think maybe we don't understand our privilege sometimes, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we have different, there are different pros and cons.
Yeah. Hmm.
That's, there's absolute truth to that. And so when I think about, since I work in the media world of the chronic illness disability industry, which is a weird thing to say, as well, we talk about access constantly in different forms. And it's clear that equality, like it, things being equal, isn't really the answer. It's about them being equitable so that the everyone has an equal opportunity. Like the experience, the goal is equal, but how you get there has to be equitable. So every like so an able-bodied person and a person in a wheelchair need to get to the same building. They aren't treated equally. Like we don't say to the person in a wheelchair, we're like, tough no, you've got to figure out how to get your wheelchair up the stairs. Like there's a ramp. You have a ramp
Hmm.
or an elevator. That's the equitable solution. And then the able-bodied person has the stairs if they want. They have two different ways. The ways are not equal. They are equitable to get to an equal experience. They both get to that building. So that's where I'm like breaking down equal. It's like we're not treated
Yeah.
equally. We should have equal opportunities. How we get there, how we're treated or what's given to us to get to that place looks different. Yeah, and I think that's what we really should be working towards is how can every human on this planet, it would be great every human on this planet, but at least we're trying to work on America. How does every human have the same opportunities? How that we get there is going to be a little different because people need different things.
I think you're mixing the words up. I think it's not really the opportunity; it's more of the access to the opportunity that we need.
Hmm.
If we have the access to the opportunity, then if that makes sense. Like we need the access to get to the opportunity, but when we have the access, then it comes an equal playing field of if who gets hired or what. 'Cause then we
Yeah,
can't say our disability is the problem because then we have the same opportunity, and whoever
yeah,
gets hired for the job is gets more qualified or
right.
whatever the reason is.
Yeah, I think that's part of opportunity as well. Is like, is it is this an opportunity that also just makes sense for you? And I like to see where we can swap disabled with something else to see if it's like, oh, maybe this is just a difference and it's not like a physical disability. I don't know if I'm coming up with an example here, but it's like, okay, this might be a stupid one with the remote work transition of the world, but it's like,
Yeah.
okay, maybe they're not disabled, they just live like 2 hours away. So they might be totally a great fit for the job, but like it just doesn't make sense logistically.
Mhm.
Or like someone who, so I really hate to say this, especially, as someone like this myself, I have a ton of brain fog, don't deal well with sleep, lack of sleep. Like it's, no one does very well with lack of sleep. I really don't do well with lack of sleep.
Yeah.
But if if the job that I want to apply for, in which most ways I am very able to do and do well, requires a weird sleep schedule, I can't be like, well, you have to accommodate it because, I need more sleep. I mean, it's possible maybe they could do that, but be
Mhm.
like, no, it's not the right fit for me. It's
Yeah.
I'm 2 hours away or I need more sleep or whatever it is that it's like, it's just not necessarily a good fit. So I think that's also something to think about when it comes to accessible opportunities. It's like, is there an accommodation that can be made? Can it be made equitable in some way? Or is it just not a good fit? And I think, unfortunately, there are instances where our disabilities or illnesses just make it not a good fit. But I think that careers are a career. If we're talking about careers in particular, we're getting innovative. Like we're finding ways to work around what was once considered like an inconvenience or like not good enough. And I love that. And remote work's helping a lot with that. So
Okay, I mean, you put art and grin, like, feel like you're making me more and more of an asshole right now. But it's so good.
well, I guess this highlights the fact that, and I have my negative moments for sure, but
Yeah.
I'm a pretty positive person. So I'm like, I hear someone take something negative and I don't want to shut it down. I'm more like, is there a positive way to look at that?
Yeah.
That's kind of how I am. I hope I'm not being annoying.
No, I mean, I enjoy the back and forth, and I think we both bring up really good points of it. Maybe,
Yeah.
yeah. So before I take the mic away from you, is there anything you want to say, promote, any words of wisdom, no winning lottery numbers? The mic is all yours.
Winning lottery numbers. Uh, well, I think something that I just like to put out there, and preach is a bit of a strong word, but I just think it's really important for people to hear, is that at the end of the day, I think all of us could work on being a bit more empathetic towards one another. And as I've said before, empathetic or empathy means connecting with other people based on known emotions. So you may not be able to be an able-bodied person's shoes or a disabled body's shoes. I don't know how I said that. But you do know what it's like to feel the basic emotions as a human. You do know what it's like to feel upset or angry or confused, loved, surprised. Like all these emotions are emotions that humans feel. And I think we can all live more harmoniously in this world if, when we are looking for connection or understand that there is a disconnect, to think about how can I see from that other person's perspective in terms of the emotion that they are feeling. If your friend is like really frustrated about work and maybe you don't agree with the reason why they're frustrated at work, but that, or you can't relate to it, but that doesn't really matter. You can relate to them as being frustrated. You know what it's like to be frustrated. So,
Okay.
so everyone trying a little extra empathy this week.
Okay, thank you, Eva, so much for giving me your time and your side of the story. If you want to follow Eva, you can follow her in the description below. The link will be there. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching, and I'll catch everyone next time. Bye.